Welcome, busy third grade teachers, to This Explainer. If you're gearing up to teach Science Unit 2, all about the physical properties of matter, you are absolutely in the right place. Look, I know your planning periods are precious and time is always short. So my goal today is to give you everything you need to teach this unit with total confidence, even if science isn't your primary background. Okay, let's dive into this.
Here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to run through the unit TEKS and mastery, core science concepts, common misconceptions, investigations and modifications, and finally, vocabulary and your interactive word wall.
All right, let's start with Section 1, Unit TEKS and Student Mastery.
Now, what's really interesting about this is just how hands-on our primary standard is. TEKS 3.6a asks students to measure, test, and record the physical properties of matter. So this isn't just about reading, right? It's about actually doing. Your kids will be getting their hands-on tools to actively measure temperature, figure out mass, test for magnetism, and see if objects sink or float in water.
And then the remaining TEKS for this unit, 3.6b, 3.6c, and 3.6d, they build right on those foundational skills. Students are going to describe and classify samples of matter as solids, liquids, or gases. They'll also predict and observe how matter actually changes states when heating or cooling is applied. And finally, they'll look at how we can combine different materials to create or modify objects, and then they have to justify why they pick those specific materials based on their physical properties.
So what does this all mean for student mastery? Well, by the end of the unit, a master student won't just be reciting definitions back to you. No way. They're going to confidently conduct hands-on measurements using tools like thermometers and scales. They'll look at an object, classify its state of matter, and back it up with evidence. They'll be able to explain what happens to ice when it melts, or water when it evaporates, and record those changes. And they'll be able to tell you exactly why certain materials are way better for building a tower than others.
Okay, let's move to Section 2, the science itself, and see how this all builds.
Listen, if you don't have a deep science background, please do not stress about it. This unit is highly accessible. At its absolute core, matter is simply what all things are made of. It comes in a million different shapes, sizes, and colors. And a physical property, well, that's just a characteristic of that matter that we can observe, measure, or test. You know, like how heavy it is, if it's magnetic, or even if it bounces.
So here is your rapid-fire science refresher. For this grade level, matter basically has three primary states. Solids have a definite shape. Liquids and gases, they don't. They literally just take the shape of whatever container you put them in. When we apply heating to matter, it causes changes like melting or evaporation. And when we apply cooling, it causes condensation, like those water droplets on the outside of a cold glass, or freezing. And honestly, that's the core science.
Moving on to Section 3, Common Student Misconceptions. Anticipating these potholes is absolutely key to a smooth lesson. The first major misconception you are definitely going to encounter is about mass. A lot of third graders instinctively assume that if an object is bigger in size, it must have more mass. You'll need to actively correct this. A really great way to do this is by comparing a giant cotton ball to a small glass marble. The cotton ball is way larger in size, right? But the marble has significantly more mass. Mass is the amount of matter, regardless of how much space the object takes up.
The next one is about invisible matter. Students often think that because they can't see gas, it isn't matter. Or they might think that when water evaporates, it just sort of disintegrates and disappears forever. So the crucial point is to consistently reinforce that gas absolutely is matter and water vapor hasn't vanished, it's literally just changed into a different state that's a whole lot harder to see.
All right, Section 4, Investigations and Modifications. This is the really fun, hands-on journey of the unit, where the texts truly come to life. The core hands-on experience on day 1 is the Measure Matter investigation. You're going to set your kids up to measure, test, and record properties. For this setup, you're going to need 3 cups with different water samples, a thermometer, a digital scale, a bowl of water for testing sinking and floating, a wand magnet, and 3 basic classroom objects per group. This is where they truly become scientists.
And this brilliantly illustrates how they track their findings using the Measure Matter data table. As the teacher, you're just going to circulate and make sure they're accurately reading those thermometers and the digital scale and properly recording their data. You're really just watching to make sure it clicks for them that different tools are used to measure different specific physical properties.
Now, to make sure all your learners can access this material, especially your emergent bilingual students, the unit provides some fantastic supports. You can use visual supports, like providing actual images of solid, liquid, and gas objects. You can also implement sentence frames, something like, "I think matter can be described by," to help structure their language. And definitely use cooperative learning structures, like Kagan's numbered heads together or volleyball not ping pong. These get students to bounce ideas back and forth, building on each other's thinking, rather than just firing one-word answers at you.
Which brings us to our final toolkit, Section 5, Vocabulary and the Interactive Word Wall.
Building academic vocabulary is so vital in science. So, to help you prep, I'm actually going to read the exact interactive word wall scripts provided in the lesson plans so you can hear exactly how it should sound in your classroom. For your first word, matter, here is your script. Matter is what all things are made of. Think, pair, share, name 3 examples in our classroom.
Next up is physical property. You'll tell the class, a physical property is something we can observe, measure, or test about matter. Rally Robin with a pencil.
For temperature, the script is, temperature measures how hot or cold something is. Corners activity. Very cold, cool, warm, very hot.
Moving to mass, you'll say mass is the measure of how much matter is in an object. Timed pair share comparing cotton ball versus marble.
For float, the script is, when something floats, it stays on top of or near the surface of water. Hand motion TPR. When something floats, it stays on top of or near the surface of water.
Conversely, for sink, you'll say, when something sinks, it drops below the surface. Hand motion TPR. Rally coach with sink/float predictions.
And finally, magnetism. The script is, magnetism is the ability to pull certain metals. Drama presentation skit using attract/repel.
And there you have it. You are fully equipped to tackle this unit. From mastering the TEKS, to navigating those tricky student misconceptions, to setting up those awesome hands-on investigations, you have exactly what you need. So my final question to you is, how will you use these tools to make matter truly matter to your students this week? Have a fantastic time teaching Unit 2, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.